on the hit. Pulse Bomb gets nothing effect. Has that one taken away by Troy Hellman. It seems like this could be. Gets nothing effect. Has that one taken away by Troy Hellman. It seems like this could be.
Hello and welcome to the Overwatch League Recap, a talk show focusing on the Overwatch League. I am BlazzinBob and I'm joined by the usual Mel. How you doing, Mel?
Oh, pretty good.
Pretty good. And we have a returning guest, Shazir. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing good. Trying to not go crazy during my, the quarantine that we all have to deal with.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like, how have you two's lives been since this has changed?
Pretty good. We haven't killed each other yet, and a lot of the work that I do is already pretty remote. So, as long as I stay on my half and my wife stays on her half, we don't crash. So,
I think Mel's been going a little stir crazy. She's not used to she works from home like half the time, but she's not used to working so much from home.
Yeah. And every time I try to do like a conference or something on video, my dog likes to eat and drink extremely loudly, like right next to me. And I'm like, what? Why? Like, you literally have gone 4 hours and haven't touched your food. But the second I get on a conference call.
Yeah. My work's actually encouraging it. Like, they want to see the kids and the cats and the animals do their things because it makes it a little bit more real how, people who are used to seeing each other in a corporate office setting, we get to see a little bit more how they are on day to day. And a little bit, it helps take the edge off sometimes when the friction can sometimes get a little too much.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I can definitely see that. For me, it's just been, I like to go out daily and I like to shop. I'm the weird guy that talks to the clerks that check me out and ask them how their day is and start small conversations. And I just can't do that now. Now, when I go out for something, it seems like people don't even want to wave it at me. And they just kind of walk around me. And it's so weird and uncomfortable. And
they don't even make eye contact. It's like today I asked somebody at Costco if this was the line, and she was like, yeah. And like looked down. I was like, what do you think's gonna happen? I don't even understand.
Oh yeah. And then it's also the comfy pants revolution. Everywhere I go, the only people that I see out it's very few, but they're all in comfy pants. Comfy pants everywhere.
I support this revolution. I think it's a great idea.
Oh yeah. I'm even wearing comfy pants now, and I never do that on the podcast, but I thought, it's the comfy pants revolution, so I'm going to do it.
I've been trying to keep my routine as normal as possible, so I still get dressed to go to work, so collared shirt, jeans, just because then it's okay, I'm in work mode. Once I'm done with work and I walk the dog and I put on comfy pants, then I know for sure I'm not in work mode anymore.
That's not a bad idea. I got really bad like a week ago, and I was doing the thing where I'd stay up until 6 or 7 in the morning and then sleep till 5. And I mean, it was bad. So I tried getting up at 5 one day, and then I tried what I did when I was younger to fix this. I tried staying up throughout the entirety of the night and the next day. I crashed at noon, dude. I crashed hard. Yeah. Luckily, I only slept for about 3 or 4 hours. Then I was able to go to bed at a normal 11 o'clock time. But man, it was definitely. I'm definitely too old to pull that trick off anymore. But let's go ahead and jump in. We always like to start the episode off thanking Shazir. So thank you so much for your your producer. And we're going to talk today about Week 9. We're going to talk a little bit of news. We're going to talk about the results. We're going to talk about hero pools for next week and preview next week. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is impressions of Week 9. It's the second week we have been online only. And I've gotten a lot of Mel's thoughts, but I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, Shaz, like just on whatever you really want to throw in about it.
Yeah, watching the games, it didn't feel too different when the game was happening. But kind of in those lulls, that's when they would usually cut to the crowd, right? We'd hear the background hum and things like that. And so there's a degree of missing the excitement. It would be I'm not a huge sports fan, so going to football games and things like this, but like it would be like going to a baseball game with it being eerily silent during a play, right? And that's kind of that feel where if I'm just listening and watching the action as it plays out, everything's kind of normal. This is normal Overwatch that I'm used to, right? But as soon as they cut back to the casters or the analysts, and it's nothing, that eerie silent background. And I noticed, and I don't remember if they did this last week, but it's this week, they tried putting a music track in the back to try and help fill a little bit of that. The problem is their mixer sometimes was all over the place, and they had this weird like 6-second loop for one part of the track. Like, okay, I see what you're doing. Come on, guys. I've gotten better at this, and I'm a pure amateur and I know how to do this better. So come on, what are you doing? So, but it did.
Somebody's messing it up.
Yeah, it did help fill that silent background that would be missing otherwise.
Yeah, the last I don't know if WWE is still going on, but I remember the last one I heard about that went on, they did it in an empty arena, and my friend's a huge fan. He was like, dude, it was weird. Like without the crowd there, it's just not really wrestling. But luckily for us, that's not really the way it is with Overwatch. Like it's still Overwatch, but yeah, the hype is definitely died down. It was just so good at the start of the year with the homestands, and that part is a big bummer. Like, what do you think about the actual games?
I think the games have been really good.
Yeah. I think other than like the 4 Chinese teams just playing each other, it makes it kind of hard to judge like where they're at with the other teams. And I'd like to get the other teams back playing. I think we haven't seen a few teams in quite a while.
Yeah. And it is true that there does, we've kind of got our 3 zones, right? You've got the Atlantic, you've got Pacific East, I guess, and Pacific West, which is the China region. And so at least with the US and European teams, either they're scrimming together or something. So they're coming to a consensus across all of those 16 teams. And then the China teams have their China meta, right? And it's not trying to be, it's just they're doing their own thing. So where we're seeing like no Sombra, but in China they're doing Sombra like that's a core piece. In this past, it was like,
who was it that somebody talked to on Flat Chat and they were saying, I think it was Neptuno or something? No, I don't know. They were saying like they didn't even think to play Torb. Like who thinks to put Torb in the meta? Like
right. But apparently everybody in the US and Europe said Torb is the foundation for everything we're doing for this week.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I've been trying to tell people Torb's been good since the rework. I mean, the first day I went on and in Plat went 13 out of 14 games wins. Like Torb is really good. It's just when your team doesn't think that he's good, they're not going to play as good. They're going to be typing the entire time asking you to swap. Like Torb's good, dude. Like Torb needs to be tweaked. But that's besides the point. What do you think about like? I've liked how they've improved the at-home cast. They've got their emotes for emote control. They've got like Johnny and Custa dressed up as the cops, and like they're doing the fun things that they were doing before, and trying to get some of those back in. So it's something that I've noticed in week 2 that they really improved.
Yeah, I mean, I think their online synergy is getting better too. I think there's not as many like awkward pauses where you don't know who's going to talk next. I think that's improving. I think watch point is probably the easiest part to get used to, being at a distance, right? Like having them all on a desk is nice, but it's not necessary. I think the thing I miss the most is like the player cameras and getting to see reactions after matches and things like that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And some of the teams really kind of built part of their brand around that, right? Like
Oh yeah. Like
Cogman or
Atlanta.
Japan. Exactly. And so missing that part of watching them stand up and like cheer or taunt the other folks that are there or the
Right.
fans.
Yep. So it's
That,
a
that
feeder.
dialogue's missing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're missing the awkward where the guys get told that they're on camera. We're missing the mic check, which I thought were about 50-50 good and bad. Some of them were just like, okay, it's a little cringy, and some of them were hilarious. But we're like missing out on that. I'm finding it really hard to remember new players because I'm so visual, right? So I see a new player and I actually remember their face, and that's what helps me remember who they are. Even though most of the time we're watching a play in game, I'm extremely visual, and that's been hard for me. I'm like, who's so and so again? Okay, and
That, and I think it's hard to remember when they sub and when they do things like that because it's not as big of a deal, right? So unless you're like really looking,
yeah, really
like if
paying
you're
attention.
watching it and not paying attention really well, like I think there was one game where it was like the second map and I was like, oh, so and so's in, you know, like
Yep.
just because you don't think about it as much, and if they're not doing a lot that the casters are talking about, you don't hear it either.
Yep. So, but that kind of brings me into something that we're getting now that we never got before is match chat. And some funny stuff happened in match chat this last weekend. And
Wait, we didn't even talk about Nori's story.
oh, go ahead.
Nori was the hero of this week.
She was the hero. And did you see the little clip that they put together?
Yeah, the clip. That's what you're talking about with the like music and everything in the background. And
Yeah.
And just Zoe's pure excitement when she pulled May.
Oh, yeah.
I had forgotten how animated she was at that. And I was just like, man, you are a true fan. Like that, I loved it because she was just like, ah! And she was so excited. Oh, man.
She just wanted her cat to do well.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you had this in the PowerPoint, but not in the actual notes. Sorry about that.
I just didn't think anybody would forget about Nori.
Well, let's talk about match chat though, because they started to show match chat to just kind of let people see a little interaction. It's kind of their fix for not having mic control or whatever it was called when they would play their mics. And so some of the players, I guess, didn't realize this, and was it Lastro that typed it first? He typed sex, enter, big dick. And then Rascal was like repeating it. And poor Super, who knew Super would be the voice of reason? He's like, guys, this is on the broadcast. Guys, please stop. Guys, please stop. And he kept trying so hard. And I was cracking up thinking of Super as the responsible one.
Right?
Oh, so
I thought it was hilarious.
I thought it was hilarious too, man. What'd you think?
Because it was like an epic, like genuine moment of stupidity, and it was priceless, right? It's not like they were trying to do it on stream. I think they just forgot. I don't know, but like, what does that even mean, though?
Oh, it doesn't mean anything. That's why it's funny. It's just like talking smack and trying to make people laugh. And
I just
like
I don't even see like smack talk in that, or like it's very strange. I'm like, are you 5? What's happening?
I mean, it could be an inside joke too.
Okay, who has an inside joke called "sex big dick"? Like that's really horrible.
That's why
inside
it's
joke.
an inside joke. You're not ever supposed to get inside jokes. That's why you say it's an inside joke. Sorry, you just don't get it. What do you think, Shaz?
Are you saying that we're outside of the scope of being able to understand pro athlete humor?
When it's 19 to
Yes.
20-year-olds, probably.
All right. I'll concede that point.
The only thing that would have made it better is if it was Stitch. That would have made it better. Just because he looks like he's 6. Like, I would have been like, and like, I wish you could see, like, I wish you could have seen like Lastro's face when he was typing it, because you know he's like sitting there like, like,
Oh,
come on.
man. So, what'd you think about it, Shaz? Did it make you laugh, or were you like, eh?
So my guild calls me Cat Dad, partially because I'm one of the raid leaders and I have a bunch of cats, right? But it's also I'm the one that's always the serious one when it's game time. So for me, I can absolutely understand where that mindset is, and
Right.
I would be super in this case. I'd be like, dude, you know this is live. Everything you do right now, live. There's no buffer. There's no filter. You know, and I might have to remind my players or something like this. So I laughed along, like, and I was surprised a little bit on the intensity of the fine, depending on what their income is, right? But a minimum of 50K, that's a decent chunk of change for them to be fined for that. But it could be, you know, they're not being live on television, so it's not like an FCC violation, but there is probably rules, you know, within the league of decorum. So
can you say dick on TV? I'm not sure if you. I think you can.
Yeah.
I don't think
Depending on what context.
I think it's the context, because you could say Richard, right, in that context, but I don't think you can say it in such a way where it's a euphemism.
Well, I
right?
mean,
So
I think
where...
that's what he meant. He meant sex big Richard.
Yeah, 100%.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, see, for me, I'm also very business when it comes to competition and things of that nature. When I was in college, I got the name Fun Bobby because on campus, I was a complete bore and wouldn't talk to anybody, was very, you know, my sights on the goal. But then at the parties, I'd have my underwear waved above my head, you know, so like, very different. And so they named me Fun Bobby from Friends. So definitely get that. I probably would have been like Super also. And if I had been Lastro, I would have been mortified. Like, oh my gosh, everybody just saw that. But I thought it was pretty funny. So I'm cool.
I feel like it's even worse for Rascal, who just like repeated it. It's like you just like made the aspect of it so much worse by saying it over and over. I just like Super's like, stop saying that. Like, why do you keep typing it?
Rascal just be like, I don't understand what I'm typing. I'm just typing what they're typing. You know, you can totally pull that card. I mean, he barely speaks English, so I doubt he can actually read match chat. I mean, he barely speaks English.
I would argue they probably have people with multiple languages where the rules apply regardless of the language they speak. So, you know, I could imagine that the Korean or Chinese players wouldn't be able to say equivalent things in Mandarin or
right.
Chinese or Korean or anything like this. That same concept, because it's an international broadcast. The whole point of OWL is that it's international and that they cater to English only to a percentage, right? If
right.
you look at some of the other broadcasts, they're very specific, you know, like the Chinese players and the translations when I've watched some of the World Cup stuff, right? They answer and banter back and forth in native language, right? And then go to the English for the translation, right? So it's secondary and not context. And so I think that would play out. It doesn't matter if you don't know what you're saying. You're responsible for how it will be received on that side.
Gotcha. Well, luckily it wasn't on TV, but it could have been on TV, because that leads us to our next story. Mel, why don't you tell us about Blizzard's talks for TV deals?
I believe they're in talks with like NBC on a sports TV coverage of Overwatch League, and they have been for a couple months. So it's kind of trying to hammer out some details here. It also said that during the COVID crisis, because there's no traditional sports on, ESPN is considering putting Overwatch League on ESPN in the meantime.
I just wish we still had a GeForce TV because it'd be the perfect spot for all of these esports to be on. They always struggled for content back in the day, and now there's so much content they could work with. They could also work with, YouTubers and different people across the world remotely. I would love to have something like G4 TV back.
Yeah, totally. And that was one of the few like newer channels that I used to watch just because it did feel right. They would have articles and segments on things that I was more interested in as a gamer and as somebody who was always online.
Yeah. And so my favorite, probably one of my top 5 favorite shows, like regular talk show type of things of all time, and that's Attack of the Show. It was a live show, so you got to see the weird, quirky things that would happen. Olivia Munn was amazing, and just it was.
You
great.
Just liked the way she looked. Don't lie.
That was definitely a plus, but I mean, she was hilarious. I mean, her improv was just out of this world, and they would always talk about stuff that really pertained to me. And then the problem was the channel just didn't have enough stuff to, keep stuff going. Like some of the shows were a little weird, a little low budget, a lot of low budget, I guess you could say. But I loved it. I used to go to sleep with it on, wake up with it on. I mean, it was great. Something like that would be really nice it could show everything, League of Legends, all of it. It would be cool. But what are you going to do?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, do you guys want to talk about some games?
Oh, I guess so.
Let's do it.
So I don't know how you guys feel about this week, but I feel that the West Side is just a bunch of cowards, and only Dallas came out and said, you know what, we're just going to play what we're good at, and we're going to try and win because of it.
That's not true.
No, well, I'm talking about the West. I'm not talking about Chinese.
I know, but Houston played Sombra.
Yeah, okay, I guess, yeah.
Come on.
But it's just like, I'm getting annoyed. This is the second week where we've seen this copycat mentality, and I really feel like coaches are not doing their part in setting up interesting ways to go after metas. They're just like, just go. If you're getting beat, just mirror. And I just don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. Like, you have so little time, right? So if you think that you can mirror and maybe you just didn't figure out the best comp and the comp that you did figure out is just getting stomped on, I don't think there's any reason not to mirror the comp in that aspect. I just think that teams need to come up with better strategies that can cover different comps, right? Like, yes, maybe they didn't know Torb was going to be there, but Torb was there. And you're saying the only thing that you have to counter Torb is another Torb? You know what I mean? Like, I think, like we talked about before this started, was I think the coaches need to be better at training their players on how to analyze the game during the game. Definitely. And not just push the buttons that they were told to push. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And now, so is that an empowerment problem or an analysis problem?
I think it's an analysis problem. I think coaches are telling their players to just mirror if they're getting in trouble. I could be wrong, but I mean, when you do that, then if you didn't practice that comp, it's probably not going to be better for you. And then, like, Surefor, who I really love, tweets out that Torb's a counter to Tracer, and I'm thinking to myself, no, he's not. He's a deterrent maybe, but like not a counter. I'm not even sure Brig was a counter to Tracer before, because you see the way Tracers play.
Armor. was a
no,
counter to the way that Tracer was played before.
maybe, but I mean, you see the way Tracers play against Briggs now, and they keep their distance till they have their ultimate, and then they come in, take her out first, and then it's good. I think the actual counter to Tracer before was that everybody was grouped up, so therefore the Brig could protect, whereas she couldn't build up her ultimate because she couldn't get close to any one person that was singled out. I think that was the actual counter, and just people not knowing how to play against her with Tracer.
And I think what you have is it depends on who the Tracer player is, right? And
Right.
if we want to start getting into specifics, right? Let's compare like a Striker or a Decay or even SBB's style of Tracer, which is an in-your-face, just applying pressure from an alternate angle style, versus Soon, who can do that, but can also play the sneaky Tracer that is
Right.
coming around and attacking you from where you are absolutely not looking, or stealing your point, whichever.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's where
Stealth in the cart.
Soon really defined that other play style, and so people would have to pick and choose. Right.
Right.
The frontline Tracer is that Sombra forward pressure, right? That's how SBB plays Sombra. It's the same way he plays Tracer. And I think that's what we saw. It's not that Torb is a direct counter to Tracer. He can, but he is an aerial denial, just like Symmetra or things like this. But you can't. Soon would lose in that environment, right?
Right.
Because Soon would try and go there, and the turret would then go, "Hey, there's someone way the hell over there," and now she has to recall.
Maybe it would, but the turret's going to target whoever Torb shot last too. So Tracer and Sombra are going to be able to sneak because the turret actually has been changed to where it will focus on the last target you shot. So that's something like, it used to be that the turret would grab the closest target, and then it was really good for like Tracer and Sombra then, but not now. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of talk about counters, and there's really not very many hard counters in Overwatch. They're more soft counters and deterrents. And I thought it was awesome though to see Torb play. I thought it was great. And like now anytime I play Torb on attack, I'll be like, dude, they do it in the Overwatch League. Leave me alone.
And you are the problem.
My win percentage with Torb is out of this world. It is higher than any other character besides one season I had with Ryan.
It's like the Chengdu effect, right? Like nobody expects it, so you win. And it's not like if everybody played it all the time, your win percentage would probably go way down. But
that is definitely true, because lots of people won't even know how to play against it because they don't run into it often enough to just know. Same reason.
What the heck is this?
And also just the skill of players in, like Platts where I play DPS. So I mean that's like the brain, the game sense of players in that realm leads me to a lot of wins that I would not get in Diamond. But I thought it was great. Were there any matches that you specifically wanted to highlight, either of you?
I mean, the Fuel LA game was amazing, in my judgment.
It was cool, dude. It was nuts.
Think part of what the impression I had while watching it is that this is the difference between a seasoned team, even if they're not at the height of their ability. But what they have is that they've got a core group that knows how they work together. They've got a number of veteran players, so they understand how they can flex within the dynamic that they have on the field, compared to what is Judgment, almost exclusively rookie team, right? They have KSP, KSF, and McGravy, but that's only half the team. And even together as a team, as even those three only have a quarter of a season, half a season now, if you count the end of last year and the beginning of this year, right? They don't have the years of time that the Fuel really has. And I think that's what every time LA got behind or were on the back foot, it's because they would make a rookie mistake or they were relying on the individual play potential of their players rather than the cohesive team play, right? Like I can't on Route 66 Dreams Shatter is amazing. It's an individual play that is etched into my head, that little hop slam. Like that was amazing. But it still didn't, like, that wasn't what won the game, right? That's not what brought them.
I mean,
and then Decay's carry.
I can tell you exactly what lost the game. As soon as the Valiant got the hammer kill, Dallas was pissed. It was all about the hammer kill. I mean, you can't be doing that. You can't be disgracing us with the hammer kill. That's just wrong. No, but I think honestly it was on the back of Decay. And I mean, we haven't seen a hard carry like that throughout an entirety of a 5-game set in a long time. I mean, that was a Fleta deadlift, I'm almost pretty sure, on every map. And a lot of people talked about Doa. And I'm going to have to watch the game over again because it was just great. But, like, I just don't know. I've said throughout the game, Doa is failing. Like, he is doing bad. He was the first to die so often. And, I mean, he didn't look amazing to me. But all the casters, everybody was just like, oh, he's great. These might be the best 2 DPS in Al. And I'm like, I think
Doa was playing Decay. And nobody disagrees with that. Decay was definitely carrying that, but I think Decay was also on a character that has the potential for carry, and I think Reaper is more of a consistent damage hero.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
what the other team gives you, like
So I think Doa was doing his job. It just wasn't as flashy as Decay. And
I just haven't I haven't been impressed by Doa. My boy Harry Hook came back and poor guy looked rusty day one. He was getting singled out and killed, and I mean killed with his ultimate multiple times when he could have saved a fight. And then the second day it looked like he really brought it back together, which made me happy. But still, I'm a little worried about Dallas's tank line and Note playing other things besides Diva, and I don't know. But if Decay can keep this up, I mean, shoot.
Yeah, I think Note playing other things besides Diva is probably your biggest question mark. I think your support line is a little questionable sometimes, and
yeah, I'm still not sure about Crimzo yet.
Yeah, you've got Crimzo, you've got Harry Hook, you've got who else do you have?
Unco.
Do you still have Unco? Like I never hear anybody talk about
Unco.
Unco.
Still have Closer, but they just haven't played in a bit. So I don't know.
Closer
if
was playing.
Closer was week 1, but
you guys haven't played since week 1, right?
Yeah. Harry was like Harry came in for Closer this week, and it could just be that Closer and Unco are in areas or internet connections where they just can't play. But since we don't have, full disclosure from teams, like, an injury report and stuff like that, we don't really know a lot of the times why people aren't playing. We don't know if it's skill wise and they would rather have different starters out, or if it's just, those are the ones that they chose. But I
do wish we knew more about that too. I also think that the starters for control map are deceiving, right? Like just because you're a starter on a control map doesn't mean that you're the starter best player on that team. You know what I mean? It means control is so different than everything else. So it's weird to hear them labeled starters. It's like the A squad, but I don't think that that's an accurate representation of it.
On some teams, yeah. I guess Loki says that Arrow talked about Unco and Closer on an interview. I'm assuming it's the one that Sideshow did with him after the game. But Arrow, I loved his answer to Sideshow. Like Sideshow was like, "White Tracer," And he's like, well, we just figured that was the best way we could win. And I was just like, good for you, Arrow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if they would have lost and played Tracer, people would be just bashing them to no other because they played this stupid comp. You know what I mean? But because they won, it's like, oh, that was brilliant.
Yeah, but I mean, we got on the Houston Outlaws all last year about why don't you play what you're good at? And then Dallas does it once and everybody ridicules them. It's like, what are you doing? It just cracks me up. But Loki said that Arrow said that they wanted Harry in because he is better at calming the team down and rallying them up to focus or regain momentum. So that definitely makes sense. Harry being a veteran and also just a real likable dude, very chill, doesn't usually get heated easily at all. I don't even know if I've ever seen him mad. So that probably is a good reason.
Yeah, it sucks when that person isn't the best person on your roster too. You know what I mean? Because then you get into these situations kind of like Jake on Outlaws, right? Where he wasn't the best at the role that he was playing, but his communication and leadership was so much better than whoever else could go in there instead of him, that it made bigger difference having him in there. But it's also frustrating. And I think that's frustrating for somebody who is that smart at the game.
The biggest difference between that situation, though, is that Jake's a DPS player, and what's required of DPS players is extremely tight game play, whereas someone playing Lucio or a support role oftentimes can see more of the field, can have more time to talk. Whereas there's a reason the vast majority of DPS players don't talk at all or are just silent, because it takes a lot of concentration and I mean, it's just like there's a reason for it. So I think Jake was just. I mean, I think Jake would have been great if he just swapped over to tank or support. I think he could have had a couple more years easy.
Maybe.
I don't think that's what he was looking for.
No, I don't think.
Yeah.
From like interviews, right, with his mom and things like that I've heard from the early seasons, like the World Cup and such like that, I got the impression that he was much more a cerebral player. So he was always thinking the long game, like he was raid leading in WoW and things like this. Like, so he was used to doing that kind of work. And so what's the long game in OWL? Well, you could either burn for 9 hours a day practicing a hand skill that might shift and become useless in the next meta, or you can work on your coaching and work on your analysts and work on casting and do these other things that'll be much more of a translatable skill, or more obviously translatable. And that strikes me as personality.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think being a pro player actually burnt him out pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like from what I saw. But now when he casts, sometimes he gets just real salty about what the teams are doing. Instead of just analyzing it, he's like almost like quietly calling them idiots, And it's just like, Jake, this is not your lane anymore. Oh, but it cracks me up.
Can I talk about the Chinese teams?
Do it.
Yep. First of all, Reinforce suggested that Chengdu go to Kansas City, and I just want to say I think that's a great idea. Bring the Chengdu Hunters to Kansas City. I would love my life.
I love how Sideshow's like, why'd you pick Kansas City? And he's like, of course, made the same mistake everybody does, even the president. Like, he goes, well, what's in Kansas? I'm just thinking to myself, dude.
Not Kansas City.
Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. Yeah, they're right next to each other on the border. But the one with all the big buildings. This is
also why it's very confusing.
Is Missouri. And Kansas City metro area is nothing like the vast majority of Kansas. It's not rural at all. It's one of the best places. I think it's top 10 places to live. Johnson County was like the top 10 places to live in the nation. And yeah, it'd be a really good spot for an Overwatch League team. But when you're talking about Kansas City, you're thinking of the top right corner of Kansas and the top left corner of Missouri, and that's Kansas City, guys. Knowledge.
Yes. But either way, let's talk about the games a little bit. So I think what I can gather from the Chinese teams is that the Charge, the Spark, and the Hunters pretty much on the same level, kind of trade back and forth, and the Dragons are just better than all three of them. Thoughts? Because they do. They just Charge beat the Hunters, and then Spark beat the Charge, and it's just a flip-flop coin toss, and it's like 3-2 games, except for the Shanghai ones. Shanghai went 3-0 over Spark and 3-1 against Chengdu.
Yeah, but I mean, to argue, I watched some highlights around the 3-0 game, and that was a lot closer than the score suggests, right? The play itself, I think, was a lot tighter. They just were, and again, this is, I think, kind of plays into the same problem we had with the Fuel and the Valiant. They're more rookie teams versus more senior teams. That you see the better cohesion, maybe it's better coaching. Something about the way they're playing just is better fused to achieve the results than we were seeing in their opposition. So we're seeing individual plays that'll make the game tight or win occasional maps, but they're losing the match at the end. So
right.
Yeah, I really honestly just don't know what to think about the Chinese teams, and I only watched 2 of the games, actually 1.5, because I ended up just being up for it. But yeah.
Well, I still love the Chengdu Hunters, so they can do no wrong.
Yeah, the Kansas City Hunters. Kansas City Cows.
It would be my dream.
It would be pretty cool.
It's about equidistant for me whether there's a Chicago team or a Kansas City team. So I can make that drive almost.
Either way.
Yeah, Chicago would be a great place for it too. I mean, there was one of the original 12 teams, I believe, was supposed to be in Chicago, and then it just fell through. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I thought San Francisco still didn't look great.
Nope.
No.
I thought their performance was disappointing for a championship team. I don't know what is going on in that back office or in the dugout for them.
Shaz, they're finally imploding. I've been calling it for 3 years, and it's finally happening.
I'll give you that. Maybe that's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah,
they won their championship, and now none of them are happy anymore. They're all like, I want more money. I want to go somewhere else. Forget this. I knew it was going to happen eventually.
The problem is the Shock didn't cash out like the Valiant did. Valiant didn't win, but they cashed out all their high-ticket items, all their high-ticket team players, right? They're now at all these other teams, watching those teams win, got a bunch of rookies in, and so now they got the cheap year, right? They're running the A's this year.
Yeah, Valiant still looks to be okay. It looks to be better as the season progresses, but
I feel like there's no telling. Like, Valiant looked great their last game they played. Didn't they beat Shock? Who'd they play last week?
Shock. Valiant lost to Shock this week, but Shock lost twice last week.
Right. And one of them was to Valiant, right? I think it's just, both the LA teams, they lost to Valiant and Gladiators last week.
Okay.
And I think that it's so hard to tell who's good and who's going to do well and who's consistent, right? Because Shock has shown us they're not consistent, and that could do with hero pools. It could be something else. It could be that Krusty can't control them as much because they're at home. But LA is showing that they're strong in certain hero pools and maybe not as strong in others. And I think that's just most teams I think are going to fall into that category.
Yeah.
I think there's very few teams that we can say are consistently good across any meta that they've played.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like when we were watching the Houston-Paris game, I was like, well, McCree's not banned, so you're going to lose because XC is just going to carry the game. And
They didn't even play XC.
what do you mean?
Paris? At
Yeah.
least
Yeah,
at least not the whole time.
Yeah,
I don't know that they played him at all.
Really?
It's the problem with the stats lab is down. I can't look, but I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing XZ this week.
Hold
I
on.
don't think I saw him, and I watched most of it, like pretty hardcore. But again, it's hard to tell unless I was watching when the substitution happened.
No, I'm in the same boat.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Okay. I remember what we were talking about now. I said you got lucky that they're not playing XC.
Yeah, but I mean, McCree wasn't even in the quote unquote meta, so
See,
Stats Lab is up now.
I get so confused. McCree was banned this week. That's why.
No. Oh. I don't remember.
Yeah, there's no place to look at the bans.
Yeah, I can look just from last week's notes. I'll pull it up in a second.
Cool. Yeah, but yeah, I'd forgotten that. Yeah, see, quarantine, man, it's got me all messed up. But at the start of the match, I did say to two of you, okay, well, you're lucky that they're not doing that because what like they were having struggles. And
It was McCree and May.
yeah, so sorry, I was just off on what I had said, but it still didn't matter because what happened with Houston?
Listen, I don't want to talk about the Houston game, okay? But
well, they
if
come
you make
out,
me-
they go 2-0 on Control, and then they just lose after that. Everything.
Yeah, it's a common theme across a lot of teams, I think, is doing well on Control and then not being able to get any of the other map types. But
You think that
I don't
has to
know.
do
I
with
mean, Houston-
communication?
no, I think it's just a play style difference. And I think, I don't know.
Yeah, like
But-
well, Control, you just don't have to have as much communication. It could be pretty scrappy.
Right. I think Houston is really good in the right meta and really struggles to adapt. They're kind of caught in between this, do we play our own style or do we try to be creative or do we just go with the meta? And I think whatever they do, if they don't win, it gets criticized, right? So I think I like that they still stuck with their strengths this week and played the Sombra. I think they tried to play the Torb and
They
Reaper for a
did.
while.
Yeah, they
And
did
then I
for
think-
a little bit.
They had more success when they played the Sombra, but then I think they got stuck on the Sombra when maybe it wasn't the best play. And I think Dante is very good at a lot of other heroes as well. So kind of putting all their eggs in that one basket, I think, is a mistake, but I think they just get tunnel visioned when something starts to work and don't realize when it's not working. They need a leader, and I think that's the biggest problem. I think, like we were talking about earlier, I think a team captain that has those skills is almost a more necessary component to a team now than it ever has been, right? Because of hero pools, because
Yeah,
you
for
can't just grind a specific comp and get as good as you can at that. You have to be more adaptable. And so you need somebody on the field that can make those adaptations. And
Or even someone in the back office. It's very possible that coaches are completely lost now, like many of them not knowing what to do.
yeah, agreed. But I think you need that on the fly thinking during the match, and the coaches can't have contact with them during the matches. So you need to take somebody under your wing as a coach and train them on, if this scenario happens, like you don't have to teach the entire team, but I think you should take one person and really get them up to speed to be the on map coach,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, is this an analyst problem or an empowerment problem, right? And I think it might be both, depending on
Yeah.
the team, right?
So,
Like,
tell me what you mean by empowerment problem.
if coaches are too used to setting up the set plays. Like we'll see teams that they do their set play. This is all they do. They don't think on the fly because their boss, in quotes, right, the coach says this is the set play we're going to run. This is how you're going to tackle the problem. No one that's actually in the trenches at the time is empowered enough to actually make the call and going, look, this isn't working. We've got a minute and a half. We got to try something different, right?
So
what are we
you're
going to try
saying
something different?
Players
Being empowered to go off script
to pull it audible
in the moment.
Right. Or even have the confidence to do that, right? Because if they pull the wrong audible.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the opposite, like coaches telling players to do certain things, but them not doing it. But I guess, yeah, yours makes a lot.
That's not what my experience mentoring my folks and both working in men's groups and in at work is they look to the senior folk, whoever that is. And if they say something, even if the younger guy doesn't get it, unless the younger guy is a rebel, right? Like they're contrary, that's just who they are. They're going to fall in line and they're going to do what they're told. And then maybe afterwards they'll bitch. Maybe if they've got some more trust along during VOD review or things like this, you might hear them come back. But what did you get out of Custa or Jake or some of the other people who we would consider team captains? Surefour, right? Exactly. Who would make a call in the middle of something and go, DeFran, like even just somebody with a big enough personality to play the game you're playing. Don't play the game you played in the locker room, because that's not what gets you there.
Well, I wonder if just those types of players are extremely hard to find, because something I find with younger generations is they can only do what you tell them to do, and then they just sit there and twiddle their thumbs once they're out of instructions, or they run into a problem and they don't problem solve it themselves. They just wait for someone to tell them the answer. I find that a lot.
Yeah, and that's, I think that plays into the both and, right? That you teach them the skill, like Mel was saying, take them under your wing, tell them how to be coaches themselves, teach them those skills of this is what I'm seeing and therefore I should make a different decision, and then empower them to make that decision in the moment when it's time to play, right? And this even could be, hell, maybe they don't want to do it during World Cup. I mean, during OWL, but maybe during World Cup, you take them and you put them in a high pressure environment where they, like, the stakes are lower, they're higher, but they're lower. Go play, make some decisions that are in that context, right? This is the scrim buck stock issue, right? If they're not being encouraged to make calls during scrims, they're not going to have the skills to do it when it comes on the field, right? And I've said this before in a number of other places, right? You experiment during scrims, you experiment during practice, and then you do what you plan. But part of that plan might be empowering a captain who can make a different call.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Gladiators and the Fusion continue to look really good.
Yeah, I can't help but Fusions are doing amazing in my judgment.
Yeah, Fusion looks good. Gladiators look good. Washington still looks really bad. I had higher hopes for Washington this season, and they've really been on the struggle bus for sure.
I definitely had higher hopes for Washington. I'm glad the Gladiators are doing good. I'm glad OG's doing good. I thought OG put out a spicy tweet, and I don't think, like, knowing him, I don't think he meant it the way it was taken by me. But him standing on top his Dallas Fuel jersey and taunting them after the match, I thought was just poor taste coming from a guy who was accepted onto a team after getting in trouble and getting suspended from the league for boosting, and then them still welcoming him with open arms, and then for him to do this, I thought it was extremely poor taste, and definitely not a proud moment for this OG fan.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't the best move.
What did you think, Shaz? Or did you even see that?
I didn't see it, but to me, there's a degree of class that comes with being a professional athlete that it doesn't. I don't care if you're football, basketball, whatever, right? We've seen poor class actions happen during post-game interviews, on-game performance, and you're be professional, right? If I did that
Right.
at my job, right, or if I saw somebody do that at their job, I might never come back to that establishment again.
Right.
You know, because you're it's the brand, and I even remember hearing interviews about some of the coaches and some of the scouts for the Owl teams talking about, we're gonna look, right. I don't remember if it was Stux or if it was Jane or somebody like this. Like, we're gonna look at your social media presence. We're gonna look at your history. Who are you when you're not on the clock? Because
I remember
if
that. I
you
forget who it was.
if you don't separate your personal life from your brand life, you're working on building a brand. We're hiring you not just because of your skills, just because you can move a mouse in a specific way. We're also
Right.
hiring you to be a brand advocate when you're not playing the game.
Yep.
And so this is why, we'll take Jake, who might not have the best hand skills as X, Y, or Z, right? We have no tracer, but we're going to keep Jake in the game, as opposed to, let's say they don't like something. I'll use Dante as the example. It's a bad example because now they have Dante, but let's say they didn't like what Dante was putting out, and that's why Shock was able to get Dante in season, right?
Right.
Yep.
Like, these are real choices that you're making from a business perspective. That an 18-year-old or a 17 or 16-year-old spouting off on Twitter or TikTok or whatever, is gonna lose opportunities there.
Well, and just knowing his relationship with the team, I truly believe he loves most of the people on the fuel, and I think it's just a bad joke. I mean, I made
and he probably
way
got caught
more
up in the
bad
moment,
jokes when I was
kind
younger.
of messing around. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I
don't
think what these players have to realize is that it doesn't matter how you mean it, it matters how it's perceived. And if it's perceived poorly by others, then you did it wrong, right?
Yep.
And I think that's what these players need to learn, and everything they say and everything they do is taken at a different level than if I were to say it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they have that realization quite yet.
Yep. And
they're in quarantine,
I just hope that I don't know, he learns how to joke a little bit better, because I really don't think he meant it the way it came across to a lot of people, including me. But hopefully he will learn. I mean, Hollywood's having all kinds of problems right now with quarantine, because these actors are just tweeting out videos of themselves talking about all kinds of things, and people are just like, what? And they have no publicist to be like, no, you can't put that out. And, they're just doing it. And one of the cringiest things I saw was there was a ton of actors singing a Beatles song. And they just would sing a couple lines, and most of them could not sing. I mean, we're talking worse than me, like bad. Some of them could hold a note a little bit, but some of them were just tone deaf, as tone deaf can get. And it was just cringy.
Well, and I think the message was supposed to be, we're all in this together, and everybody was like, F you. We're not in this together, you millionaires sitting in your mansion. No.
Getting food sent into you, and I mean, come on.
We're all in this together. It's just a little bit harder for most other people than you.
Yeah, a lot harder, but this is the show about Hollywood. Was there any other games you guys really wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean,
it has been harder to. I will admit, it's been harder to follow these last.
I think one of the reasons it's been harder to follow is the number of games that are being played. I was really enjoying only having a few games a day, and I think that the number of games makes me watch them less intently.
True.
If it's not my team playing, which isn't horrible, but it definitely takes away from the experience for me, I think, watching the other games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fair
five
enough.
5 games, right, at an hour and a half a pop. That's an overtime job, no matter how you cut it, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, and so end up just kind of being, I don't know. My ADD definitely kicks in when this is going on. But something I did want to bring up though, man, Bren. I've talked smack on this guy for years now. And man, I love him now, dude. I love his analysis on like Plat Chat. I love his casting. I honestly think that the reason he was a bad analyst before is ADD. I think he wasn't watching the games as intently, and now that he's casting them, he's really watching them and really taking it in because he used to say the dumbest crap and just he would make crap up and he would just it was just bad, right? And now if he hasn't watched a game, he at least goes, "Oh, I didn't catch that game." And I love that. I hate it when people just try to fill space. I don't catch every game. And I'm going to tell you when I don't catch it. And I'm not going to just try and talk to talk because I think that's just a waste of everybody's time. And he's just been, I'm in a little bit of a man crush right now with Brent. I got to say, I got to give credit where credit's due.
I do like him better as a caster than an analyst. I think that's just it suits his style. And you might be right. It might be an ADD thing. Who knows? But I appreciate the way his mind works while casting.
It's awesome.
And I think maybe the analyst desk was too slow form for him, just too separate from the action, right?
Yeah.
So trying to put them back together.
Yeah, and I feel like because I love Plat Chat, I love Mr. X, I love Sideshow, and now I love Bren too because he just it's like he went from being just completely wrong about almost everything to now being right a lot of the times in my opinion of course, but like even when someone I don't agree with him, I could see where they're coming from a lot of times if they're a good analyst, and he's just starting to get that from I'm starting to get that from him. So I said ADD and it reminded me of that, so I had to bring it up. But if you guys what squirrel? Oh, yeah. If you guys want to talk about the pool for next week,
let's do it.
All right, so Sombra banned. Couldn't care less. I still don't like Sombra. But my boy Reaper is banned. Man, Reaper tried to get love for so long, and now he's finally getting some love, and he's banned. Diva's banned, which I think is going to open a lot of weird things up, but unfortunately, I think everybody's going to play double shield because of it. And then Anna's banned.
Except for Chengdu.
Chengdu.
Chengdu's like, this is our week.
Ball time. So
play like Ballarissa or something crazy like that. And it's like, what is happening?
So how do you feel about the pool bans, and what do you think it's going to force?
I'm most worried about the Diva ban. I think that banning Diva, there's a lot of off tanks that play Diva very, very well that we are not sure how they're going to play on somebody else because Diva's been fairly dominant for most of the history of Overwatch League. But I look at like Meko on Houston Outlaws, like, I don't know what he's going to look like. And I know people have said he can play Sigma or he can play Orisa. Like, I just don't know. And I think he excels at Diva, and he's kind of finally getting that synergy going with Muma and some of the other team. But we'll see. I think Anna being out is annoying because we'll probably just see more Moira, and Moira's annoying. But
Anna being out's pretty big. It does cut the healing pool quite a bit. Like, I think Moira's going to be a must pick for a lot of the comps going into this next week.
I think Moira will be only if they're not going dive, right? I think
even if they're going dive though.
Batiste, I think, still has a lot more utility than Moira does. So if they
I
need
keep forgetting about him.
throughput, and a team that has better positioning will take Batiste, right? A team that wants to brawl it out will take Moira, because they don't have to try and position around the lamp or anything like this, right? The immortality.
Right.
So you won't see, you're not likely to see kind of Genji Tracer dive with Ana out.
Mm-mm.
But you might see, maybe Batiste Brig or Batiste Lucio, right? Lucio, especially with Diva out, like you said, maybe double shield, or they'll, because they won't go true OG dive, right? They're not going to go Winston Diva because there's no Diva. So who else would you dive with? You'd have to dive with Ball. I mean,
could you do a Winston Ball?
People have been trying for a long time, but it doesn't seem to synergize well.
Yeah, no, because now May's back in the pool. People are going to play May, and Ball is hard against May.
So is Winston, too.
They don't have the same kind of territory control that you might have with the more traditional dive, right? Because either one that's going in can get just melted. The point of dive Diva was because Diva can eat everything, which means that if you want to try that kind of dive, you have Sigma, but she doesn't have the kind of mobility that Diva does, right? So I think you're more likely to see, maybe Ball and Chain with Orisa Hog. You might see even some traditional Rein Zarya.
I wonder if Hog might show up. There are a lot of off tanks in the league that have good hogs. There's also a lot of DPS in the league that have really good hogs too. And I think there's a lot of divas
on Hog?
there's a lot of divas who, just like Mel said, yeah, everybody says they could play this, but you're watching them on stream on ladder. Like, until it's in the Overwatch League, I don't care. But, I talked about Space, said one trick. He was in Al, but now, man, oh my God, he's amazing.
That completely.
Oh, he was. He never played anything else good.
Oh, gosh.
In Al. I'm not talking World Cup. I'm not talking
No. As a Valiant fan, his Hog was really good as well.
His Hog was it was pretty good. We just didn't get to see a lot of it. Right. But dude, he's awesome at Zarya. He's awesome. Like he has been impressing me across the board, dude. So, but then you look at for the Dallas Fuel, oh my gosh. The Diva player for Dallas Fuel is Note. And Note tried to play Zarya, and it was hard to watch. I mean, yeah, he'd get to 100 energy a lot of times, but he was putting no damage into the other team. You know what I mean? And getting really slow ultimates, and it was just he's waiting for that perfect bubble, but not doing anything else in the meantime. And he was getting energy plenty, but he just wasn't doing any damage. And so
and which is shocking, because good Diva players, right? And Note is in the top rung of the good Diva players, has to have such a good game sense to know when to eat what. Yeah. So you would think, just apply that same thing to a good bubble.
Well, I mean, he had great bubbles. That was his only thing that he was good at.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, and so I think we have an opportunity, teams have an opportunity to just find out what their players are good at and play those at the off take spot and just see what happens. But will the cowards do it?
I was waiting for you to say that, because invariably that was what I was good. Well, you could encourage them to do this. That has been the drum that you are beating. This is.
That's definitely what I've been trying. But I don't know if it'll happen. I think we're going to see a lot of Sigma Orisa is what I think we're going to see. And it's just because that's what they were practicing in World Cup. There's a lot of people still know that play style well. I don't think they're going to try to break the meta this next week. And it's unfortunate, but what do you do?
Yeah, and so then they're likely, if we're going to see Sigma, I would think we'll see Batiste a little bit more than Moira, because his immortality field can be the trance, the Zen trance of the against Sigma's ult, right? Whereas Whereas a trance, you could also use trance, right? So you could see a Zen for your off heal instead. So who knows? Maybe they double up. But that seems like a poor choice, with doing Batiste Zen.
Yeah.
They'd probably go Lucio for the mobility instead.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that's gonna close us out. Unless there's any final thoughts you wanted to talk about or bring up.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up real fast is just that the schedule is out for the next few weeks, so that's exciting. We know a little bit more about who we get to see and when.
Yeah, instead of what it was before, like we just would have 1 week, and that's the only schedule that we would see. So now
I do think it's weird that it's not posted on
it's
the
not.
schedule
Yeah.
part of the site.
It's still not on the schedule part of the site.
So I think that there's a gap between their web team and their actual organization team. Like, I think they have it organized. They've coordinated with the teams who's playing. It just hasn't filtered through to the web team. And it's understandable if everybody's working from home. Maybe that's on a lower list of priorities.
I wonder if, what you're calling the web team was the content team. They were the ones that pushed everything to the website. I'm guessing that IT has been repurposed for that in the time being, because I'm guessing the content team is currently temporarily laid off. I could be wrong about this, but it seems like not a lot's happening with the website at all.
Yeah, I can't speak. I don't know what's going on the Blizzard side or the league side.
We're
right? I'm busy at.
We're in speculation zone here. This is all speculatory.
Yeah. I'm in education, so I'm working my ass off. So.
Yep.
Oh, all right. Well, we will see you guys. Oh, I probably should do the whole outro, huh? I'm so off. Sorry, guys. All right. That's going to do it for this week. We encourage you to follow us on Twitter at AlRecap. If you want to send some a bit longer, contact at alrecap.com. If you want to watch us live on Twitch, there's no telling when we're going to do it, but we're going to do it sometime. So follow us on Twitter to find out when you can see us on twitch.tv/AlRecap. We're always on youtube.com/AlRecap if you want to catch up on any episodes. If you want to get in with our community, we have a Discord server. It's discord.me/OmnicLab. Now, tell me if I'm right, Shaz. You should know this, but is there a quarantined impromptu game night this Friday?
Yes, there is. So one of the OmnicLab Diamond patrons, not me, one of the other Diamond patrons, is putting together a mid-month game night this Friday. They'll be on starting at around 8 p.m. Central Time or Eastern Time, but chances are the chat rooms will be open a little earlier. So yeah, if you want to get together and play with like-minded Owl and OmnicLab and just any range of ability, feel free to stop by the Discord and hit them up, and we'll play some free for all. Might do some comp rules, maybe get out of the hero ban if this week's ban set in the competitive ladder bans. This week isn't so bad, but last week was painful.
Yeah, it's a really good time for people of all skill types, and it's kickball rules. Like, if you don't get picked for a round before, you're in a pool that has to be picked first for the next round. So you never go more than one game. Have to just sit out. It's just a really fun time, and it's a lot more fun than playing comp, in my opinion. I love them, and this is going to be exciting for me because I didn't get to make it to the last one. I was in full depression mode and just was not going to get on any game. So, yeah. I'm getting better now, though. I'm getting better. We've been doing Zoom with family and friends, so it's got my spirits up. But yeah, we encourage you guys to come. That's discord.me/omniclab. Mel, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at MelOverwatch.
And what about you, Shazir?
I am Shazir on Twitter and various other places, Twitch, etc. SHAZEAR. So Shaz into your ear.
Yeah, I finally am able to say Shazir. Took me 2 years to be able to say your name, man. It's been, like I'll have to shorten it to Shaz, but Shazir. I can finally do it now. I used to get caught right in the center of it. But if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Blazzin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Thank you guys for listening. Everybody at home, stay safe. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.